All right, it's Monday, August 2nd, 2021. My name is Mike Cosgrove with PCIA, and I have the privilege today of spending some time with Kim Fricke-Minnis, the founding principal of PCIA. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Very good to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. And for all of you, you refer to her as Kim. I refer to her as Mom, except when we're in business situations, and then she's Kim as well. So my mother, Kim Fricke-Minnis, began PCIA back in 1988, and we're going to get into some of those details. The podcast today is called The Top 5 Lessons to Know. And then we've got in quote marks, the Michigan Miracle. And Kim's going to talk about the Michigan Miracle and the top 5 things that got her to the point that she's at in her life, and some wonderful, wonderful information to share with you folks. If you need to reach out to PCIA, we can be reached at 800-969-4041. I always say we do this weird thing where we actually answer the phone. So please feel free to reach out to us online. Our website is PCIAonline.com. And so you can see all of our direct dials and all of that good stuff there as well about the agency. So Kim, share with us, a fun fact. Instead of insurance for a minute, let's talk a fun fact for a second.
Okay, fun fact. I am an equestrian, and I ride horses every chance that I can. My husband and I built a horse barn and small stable in a home that we built a couple of years ago. And it's been a life love for me forever. Wasn't able to have horses for many years when I was raising my children as a single mom. But that's one of the rewards of hard work, is having the ability to enjoy the sports now. Absolutely.
The farm is like a little slice of American pie, I always think when we're out there. So it's a wonderful space, and the horses are amazing. My kids love them, and I think Kim would have thought it would have been amazing for them to compete and all of that good stuff. They never did get into that world, but they love to go and see the horses at their grandmother's house. So Kim, tell us about 1988. Kind of start us down that path when you started the agency and how that all began.
Sure. Well, it was a whirlwind, to say the least. I have to go back just a little bit. I was in the insurance industry, working for a couple of agencies in Louisville, Kentucky, where we lived for 10 years, and found out that was at that time, I'm not sure if it still is, it was a little bit good old boy network, and it was difficult for a woman, frankly, to move up when you work for an insurance company.
Sure.
So I finally figured out where the money was, because I was hungry to earn a good living for my family. And I learned that being on the insurance agency side was probably the best move for me. So I made the decision to do that. I worked at a couple of places. The last one was Rieger Harris, and the unit that I worked in specialized in architects and engineers. I interviewed for the position. I frankly didn't even know what an architect engineer was. And
in time frame, when was this?
This would have been I'm going to say 86.
Okay.
So I didn't work there for a real long time.
Sure.
But I worked there long enough and this is all we did in my unit, was architects and engineers. I had one boss, and I was chief cook and bottle washer. I did everything except go outside in the field.
Okay.
So I bound insurance, I completed applications, I got to know all the underwriters. I had the privilege of being able to travel to Monterey, which was home office for the main company we represented, and DPIC at the time, and got to know a lot of people. And I got disappointed at the agency that I worked at in Louisville, in that when they hired me, they said I would be able to get in sales. And frankly, it was an all men-owned agency. And the first day on the job, I learned that I wasn't going to be able to go out of the office. So I was already a little upset about that, but I made the best of it, put a lot of hours in, unpaid hours, I might add, just to learn everything I could. And then I finally got brave enough and said to an underwriter that ultimately became a lifelong friend of mine, she's no longer living, but I said, I need a different job. I said, I am willing to leave Louisville. I want to interview with agencies that are in this network that specialize, architects and engineers that represent the same insurance company. And so she introduced me to Al Voren. Al Voren is the gentleman that actually spent the money to put PCIA in business initially. He was in Illinois and had the franchise, if you will, even though it's an independent agency. He had the rights to this particular company, DPIC. And I happened to have met him at a training event in Monterey, so he knew who I was. And Roberta,
Miss Roberta Madison.
Roberta Madison, bless her heart, she sent my resume to Al Voren and said that Al would like to talk to me. Well, it turned out that we had the phone call, and he paid for me to come to Chicago. I spent the day with him in the field there. Tom O'Karma was there. He was like the right-hand man with Al Voren, and he was an owner there as well. So they said, we want you to come to Michigan. And they paid my way to make the move. I spent probably 2 months in an apartment in Michigan. You all were still in Kentucky, and got my feet wet, trying to learn everything I could, and was able to then sell the house, buy another house, and bring my kids here. And so it was the best move of my life. I was really...
it was huge.
It was a huge move. And at the time, of course, I didn't know how big of a move it was going to turn out to be. I mean, very naive, you know. I wasn't, probably just turned 30 or something like that. And I just, I did everything they told me to do.
Sure.
So I was a perfect employee, literally. And
we're originally from a southern town in Indiana called
Yes.
Washington, Indiana. In Washington, Indiana, all of our family is still in Washington, Indiana. Just an amazing town. But to then move to Louisville, Kentucky with 2 little kids, and then move to Michigan with the start of someone basically giving you a hand up. I mean, basically that's what Al did.
They did, and he did, and I'm forever grateful. He's still, I still communicate with him. He's retired in Arizona, and actually so is Tom O'Karma, and I do stay in touch with both of them. I fell in love with the work, and I've always said this, that if you enjoy what you do for a living, you never work a day in your life. And that was an amazing mental thought and thing that happened to me, that I never did work a day in my life. And once I started with PCIA, fast forward a few years, in 1992, I had a partner there. Al had also hired another lady. So she and I were running the agency on the day-to-day under the direction of Tom and Al Voren. 1992, Al Voren offered to sell the agency to us, lock, stock, and barrel, the whole thing. And we were actually surprised that it happened as quick as it did, because it was 88 to 92 with the offer to purchase the agency.
Sure.
And
before 92, Kim, did you have any ownership? Were you a small owner?
I was. I was a 5% owner. Gene Thompson was a 5% owner. And Al Voren was older than I am. Not a lot, but he's older. And he was, the agency was so successful in Michigan, he decided that at some point he was going to sell his very large agency in Illinois. And the best way to do that was first to sell the agency in Michigan to us, because we ran it.
Sure.
I was the first president of the organization, and Gene Thompson was the partner. Can you cut that out?
Johnny, you're good with cutting that out?
Okay.
So Kim, it was you and Gene Thompson as partners. You were the first president of the agency, I understand?
I was, and basically my whole role as president, because the agency wasn't that large at that point. We were less than we were probably 600,000 in annual revenue total.
Okay.
Very few employees. So I did most of the sales. My partner decided that she'd rather be in the office more, and I'm not discrediting her in any way, but it came very clear to me at some point that I was going to need to buy her out. So in 1994, I asked Al Voren, because we still owed him money, and we owed the insurance company money on the loans that they provided, put forth for us to buy the agency.
Sure.
So I spoke with Al Voren. He said he would back me, so I made an offer to Jean. She simultaneously took a job out at DPIC. So
at the insurance company?
At the insurance company, and she moved to Monterey, so she and her family. So it worked out very nicely, and then I owned the agency for a number of years, and Al Voren and his wife, they came to Michigan, and we celebrated the mortgage burning, and you joined us over a dinner when the agency was paid off in full. And I think it was probably a 10-year total duration. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Kim, I know, with today's podcast, we're talking the top 5 business lessons to know in the Michigan Miracle. So tell us about the Michigan Miracle. And by the way, Kim has hit number 1 on our list, and that was to find a good coach and mentor. And I think Al and Tom, and Al especially, I mean, just amazing folks.
Yes, they were both very good. In fact, I've kept all of my training notes. I don't look at them any longer, but Tom O'Karma, because when I was in Louisville, I was inside only. I hadn't gone out to an office. I'd gone to some meetings, but I didn't go outside and sell.
Sure.
So Tom came to Michigan early on and went out in the field with me, spent a day, and we visited some firms I had made appointments with, and he
gave you advice after the meetings.
He did. He had pages full of notes of everything I did wrong. I didn't do much right. It's just so you know.
No one would the first time,
yeah,
right?
I mean,
on anything they're doing.
It was all just so quick, so fast. Just learn everything you can. It was easy because the main company we represented, provided so many great tools.
Sure.
But I had to learn sales, and I hadn't done that. So, and the beauty of our business is, because we believe in what we offer above and beyond an insurance policy, that we really aren't selling.
Sure.
Anytime we meet with a prospect, it's totally, there's no selling going on. It's really getting to know the prospect and helping their firm. But the Michigan Miracle was coined by Tom O'Karma.
Okay.
We, in our first year of first full year of business, on September 1st, and previous to us, another insurance company had gone belly up.
Oh, okay.
The company itself. And so a lot of insureds in this state were all commonly renewing on January 1st.
Okay.
So on our first full year I said January 1st, it's September 1st actually. On September 1st, Jean and I wrote over $1 million of new premium on one day.
Oh my gosh.
And
you had a line out the door, if I remember the story
correctly. They didn't come to the door, but we were busy on the phone all day long, binding coverage, and it literally put us on the map.
Sure.
And Tom O'Karma coined us the Michigan Miracle based on that, and then every year thereafter we grew, and I continued to grow. In fact, when I bought Gene Thompson out, at the time, DPIC had a new CEO. Peter Hawes, one of the founders of DPIC, passed away.
Sure.
And the timing wasn't good for me because when I made the offer to buy Gene Thompson out, and I did, then I had to have a meeting with the new CEO, and he wanted me to merge with an agency in Ann Arbor.
Basically, he said, Kim, single lady, you can't do this on your own.
Yeah, no partner. And,
sure.
And so you have to, we want you to merge. And it was kind of a very forceful suggestion. And Tom O'Karma, Al Voren, and a couple of other people were there with me in the meeting. And I was able to convince the CEO to give me 6 months. And he gave me, some goals to reach, and big goals. And he didn't think I would make it.
Sure. You were somewhat set up to fail? Is that?
But maybe that's a way to look at it, but failure wasn't an option
Wasn't
for
an
me.
option.
I had already, I felt personally sacrificed a lot to get where I was.
Absolutely.
My time and energy, and yes, I was a single mom, but I had proven myself.
Sure.
And I had run into some of that stuff in Kentucky, and I wasn't going to let it happen to me again. So
women can do anything.
that's right.
Women can absolutely do anything.
You have to put your mind to what you want, and that's what I did. So I outsold for the period of time, whatever that period of time was. It was months. I outsold every agency in the network across the U.S. for that period of time.
Even Dealey Renton out in California.
I did, and they have multiple producers.
We love those folks. We love those folks.
We do.
But we deserve to win too.
Yeah, we deserve. And so I never had to have a second meeting
Sure.
with the CEO of DPIC.
That's amazing.
In fact, I was invited to speak at their next event and tell the rest of the agents how I did it. So it was hard work, lots of hours, determination, grit. I mean, that's what it takes.
Sure. So when you decided to go into working with architects and engineers, what was the plan? I mean, there was other agencies that did this already in the state, right? Like
Yes.
what was your plan?
Okay, good question. Well, there was one major agency in the state, and that agency is still in the state. But we did everything different. We knew going in that our model was different.
Sure.
We had a lot to offer. And it's not disparaging the other agency whatsoever.
Oh, gosh,
I mean, a lot of agencies prior to being exposed to DPIC and having the competition did business the same way. It was mostly telephone and faxing probably. We didn't have email at the time, the applications. But we went in the field. We went to the offices of our prospective clients and our clients, and not only once a year, but we would visit 2 or 3 times a year. Basically, we did loss prevention seminars and a lot of value added. But it's impossible to create a long-term relationship when you're doing everything by telephone.
Right.
So I literally put over 40,000 miles a year on my car, year in and year out. For years. I did, at one point, I did finally kind of burn out from all the driving, but listening to a lot of books
on tape and things like that.
and all of that was kind of helped pass the time. Knock on wood, I never had an accident.
You have a phenomenal driving record, I know.
And I did have...
Anytime I've gotten a speeding ticket, you've reminded me.
Always. But I did get one speeding ticket. It was like 7 a.m. in the morning, and I was coming into a construction zone on a curve, coming into, I believe it was Saginaw, and there were no vehicles around me, and I had already taken my foot off the pedal to let myself coast down, but there was right around that curve was a state cop. Yeah. And he wasn't buying it. I got a ticket. And that was the one and only. I paid that ticket.
Sure. So the top 5 business lessons we've got: find a coach, mentor, someone that believes in you.
Absolutely.
Women can do anything. Total empowerment. Seeking out areas that perhaps are underserved. Maybe is kind of what you were just sharing with us. Is a good way to kind of coin that.
Yes.
And then talk about expectations, like folks that expect. I mean, I think we've always talked about as a family, if you expect more out of life, you're going to get more out of life.
Right. Yes, I think I'm a very positive person. I try to stay positive, and I always wanted more for the family, and I wanted to give back as much as I could and give back to our clients. And I love providing seminars. I did that for years and years. And then we started spending time on committees. I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we spent time on committees and rolled our sleeves up and worked with the committees of the associations of our clients. And am I answering your question, or did
Sure. I think that's a great I think that's a great response. I mean, we do a lot of work with the associations, and And when we say associations that our clients are a part of. So
Yes.
for the legal community, because we also deal with law firms, it's the ALA, the Association of Legal Administrators. For the CPAs, it's the CPA FMA, used to be known as AAA. For the architects and engineers, it might be AIA or ACEC, which, I'm actually leaving tomorrow and taking my family to the AIA summer conference up north. AIA AGC, I should clarify that. Summer conference up north, and just an amazing time to get to spend with those folks. On Friday, I'm presenting some material that everybody needs health, safety, welfare credits, and so I'm providing a number of health, safety, welfare credits while we're up there as well. So any good story come to mind from the past that you're thinking, I should share this with the audience? Somebody out there that maybe is young in their career, hasn't gotten very far yet. Any words of inspiration that you want to share?
I would suggest that a young person, and it took me a while. I mean, I was in my early 30s before I figured this out. You have to apply yourself in reading good books, motivating books and business books. I'm an avid reader. There's so many new techniques and ways of doing business, but I think if I were starting out, I wouldn't change what I did. I would embrace the technology that's available now.
Sure.
And I also know that working long hours can take its toll on the family. And I have a funny story to share. Early in the days in the agency, my kids were old enough to stay at home by themselves, and I came home one night at 10 o'clock because I had to go to the office. I couldn't work from home remotely. I mean, to work.
Back then the technology wasn't like it is today.
The technology wasn't like today.
You're growing a business.
Yeah. So I had to spend hours. I mean, and we had to photocopy the applications, one page at a time. I mean, we didn't have like a multi-photocopier.
No self-feeders.
No, and applications are like 30, 40, 50 pages long, depending on the firm.
Well, and then you'd fax it and then to the insurance company, and that would be slow as well, right?
Yes, everything was slow. And so I remember coming home. We had our first home in Michigan was a bi-level. My bedroom was downstairs, and upstairs was the main bedrooms and the living area and the kitchen. And as I walked in the door, I saw a piece of paper on the stairway that I couldn't miss, and I picked it up, and you had left me a note that said, "Mom, we're out of milk. We need to talk." So this was Michael's subtle way of telling me he couldn't drive.
Sure.
So I had to get to the grocery store. So anyway, yeah, I think it paid off. Not that we were out of milk, but because my son firsthand saw what it took
Absolutely.
to become successful. And even before he drove, I remember one July 4th, we were at the office working, lived in Pinckney, and Shannon wasn't with us, but we went to the office, worked all day, and there had been some storms that came through, and we pulled into the driveway at our home, and we lived in the woods, basically, and we had two huge trees over the driveway, and there were limbs everywhere. We had no power, so I left the headlights on in the car long enough they'd turn off by themselves so we could figure out where the end of that tree was. So we got around the tree and got up into the house, and then I think
it was before cell phones. It wasn't like
cell phone. Yeah.
You didn't pull out your cell phone and have your flashlight.
No, there was nothing.
we had to hustle to get past the trees.
So we go up to the house, and Mike takes a flashlight outside. He says, "I'm going out to check the house out." So he did, and he came back in, and he said, "We've got a big job tomorrow." I mean, there were limbs, and I of course had to pay to have the trees taken out. But those are things that happen to any business owner. You just have to be willing to do what you have to do, and that's what we did.
So going back to the books, and I'm glad you brought that up because books has always been a huge part of our education. I tell you, anytime I'm interviewing anyone, it's one of the first questions that I ask, like, what's the best book you've read as of recent? And if they hesitate, if they stall on that, there's a lot of folks walking around that all they do is spend their weekends on Netflix. And there's nothing wrong with Netflix, but turn it off and read a book and fill your mind with some good stuff. So I'm going to give you a minute to think about this, Kim, and I'll share what book I'm on currently. But what's your favorite business book that you'd recommend? The book right now that I'm reading is the 12-week year is what it's called. And it's all about breaking your year into 12-week increments and then having, and don't ask me who wrote it. I'm always terrible about the author unless it's someone like Jim Collins or something like that. But it's a very good book, but it's all about setting your goals in a 12-week period so that you can actually accomplish them. Because when you've got 365 days, it's very hard to, it gives you a lot of time. It's kind of like the old saying, if you want something done, give it to somebody that's busy. Well, everyone, if you've got 365 days, that's a lot of time. So
right.
have you thought of what your favorite business book is? And Kim reads a tremendous amount of books every year. And I would say you easily read 25 books?
I would say at least. And I have to force myself to read a fun book. It's terrible to say. I've always, I just love business.
And she's passed this on to me as well. I mean, even on vacation, I'm like, why would I read that book? I could read something that'll help me get better about, negotiating or help me get something better about time management. So,
So anyway, I would say the best book that I ever read was the book Good to Great.
Okay.
And
sure.
that was a good book. I have a very dear friend that I have met through basically social media. Her name is Lee Miltier, and she's an author of several books. And you can look her up to look at her books. She's on Amazon. And so I've just started reading some of the books that she sent to me. She's a business coach.
Okay.
And very successful in her own right in what she does. So
I didn't even know this. So you now have a different coach that you're working with. So, and I think that's a great way to, my youngest daughter is Sophia is 12 years old. And I haven't even told Kim Mom this. Sophie has a coach. Sophie doesn't even know it yet, but
good for her.
She has a young lady that is going to be coaching her. This young lady's in her early 20s, mid 20s, I'll call it, and just going to talk to her about things like put down the phone, pick up a book, spend time that isn't required of you to do things, think about where you want to go in life. At 12 years old, not too much, but enough to get Sophia thinking in the right path. So I love that you have a new coach.
Yeah, no, I love that. I need to come back to the office. I work from home. I still do contract reviews for PCI's clients, which I love to do, and I've done them for so long. And
sure,
I spend a lot of time doing those. We're very detailed on what we do.
Absolutely.
I've got the staff, the inside staff that do the insurance part, and I do the risk management part, and it's very fulfilling because even though I'm not I'm not a 40-hour person anymore, thank goodness. I can do these or random arrivals. I can do them and work from home, go into the office on occasion, but primarily work from home now. And our clients know that I do, so they always want to know what's going on with the horses or whatever.
Absolutely. So one last question. So someone says, hey, I sent them an email. In today's world, before COVID, during COVID, even post-COVID, I sent them an email. What would you say?
At our agency, and now your agency, email is a form of communication that basically confirms the conversation for both parties. I am a firm believer in picking the phone up and talking with someone. It's so easy to get in the habit of doing email only, sure. And I find myself doing that. And I'm like, I need to call them because I could probably cut to the chase a lot quicker. The problem is you can't get people on the phone always, especially for what I'm doing, contract reviews. A lot of the times these principals and employees in these firms are out in the field, so sure. I don't always get them. But I think it's important for any business. You've got to keep that relationship aspect of the business key in your mind. And the client is always right. In fact, years ago, I put mirrors on everybody's desk so that when they picked the phone up, I suggested them, but I probably told them too, that even if you're having a bad day, the client doesn't need to know you're having a bad day.
Sure.
We all have bad days, but with that mirror, it was a reminder when they picked the phone up to put a smile on their face, because it's hard to be in a bad mood if you're smiling.
I think it's impossible.
Yes.
I think scientifically it's impossible
Yeah.
if you're smiling.
And so we want our clients to know that when they call us, they are the most important person at that moment in time, bar none.
Sure.
And we stop what we're doing and we fix whatever needs to be fixed, or we help them with whatever they need help with.
Right. Absolutely. I always say email is a great documentation tool, and it's a terrible communication tool. I mean, it is just, that back and forth is not it. And from a business standpoint, I think the relationship of picking up the phone or having that face-to-face cup of coffee with them or something like that is so important, and forget all the email back and forth, and then you can do the follow-up for your documentation
And
purposes.
in fact, a plug for you is that you have an email course, education course that you deliver.
We do. It's called the 7 Deadly Sins of Email. So we have a lot of fun with it. We've had a lot of firms that have had us come in multiple times and do that program, but it's all how firms get into trouble with what they put into email, both internally, from an internal culture standpoint, as well as externally with their clients, and it stems into claims and all kinds of cool stuff. So it's a great program. Thank you for remembering that.
One of many that you offer.
So Kim, if someone wanted to call you and say, "Gosh, I heard that podcast. I haven't talked to Kim in a while," how would they get a hold of you? What's the best number to call you at?
734-604-5116.
There it is. There's Kim's number, and I really appreciate you being with me here today. And I've been really looking forward to this. I was trying to remember. I think this is our 5th podcast, but I didn't want it to be pressure for both of us. And now that I've been through it a while, I'm much more relaxed with running the podcast. And so I thought I'd be able to put Kim at ease by having her here after we've got a few under our belt. So to reach out to PCIA, you can do that by calling 800-969-4041, and our website is pciaonline.com. Thank you so much for joining Pro Concepts, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much.